The Great Hall was silent except for the soft humming of alien machines. High Commander Vexithala stood tall in the center of the room. His body looked like it was made of living crystal, shining under the strange lights that hung from the ceiling. Around him sat creatures from many different worlds. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of gas that glowed different colors. All of them had one thing in common. They had all been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire. "Today is a great day," Vexithala said. His voice was cold and hard like metal scraping against stone. "We have won the final battle. The last rebels have been destroyed. Now the galaxy belongs to us." The creatures in the room made sounds of approval. The insect-like krill clicked their sharp teeth together. The gas beings, called nebulans, turned bright yellow with happiness. For 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been growing bigger and stronger. They had taken over world after world. Nothing could stop them. The Drakmor had been great warriors. Their soldiers were 8 feet tall and covered in scales like dragons. But the Zephyrians had crushed them in just a few months. The synthetics had amazing technology. They could build machines that thought like living beings. But the Empire had torn their cities apart piece by piece. Even the ethereals who could move things with their minds had fallen to Zephyrian power. Far away from this victory celebration, Captain Jake Murphy sat in his command chair. He was on a human ship called the Aurora. The ship was small compared to the massive Zephyrian warships. Jake was 34 years old and had spent most of his life flying through space. His face had lines from years of staring into the endless, black between stars. "Lisa, are you getting all of this?" Jake asked. He turned to look at his communications officer. Lisa Grant was a young woman with quick eyes and fast fingers. She had been listening to alien radio signals for 2 years. Now, her face was pale as she listened to the Zephyrian victory speech. "Yes, Captain," she said. "Every word. They are not just talking about winning battles. They want to make slaves of everyone. They want to take all the resources from conquered worlds. They want to destroy the cultures of other species." Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his science station. He was a tall man with a thick beard who studied alien life forms. "Captain, I have been analyzing their biology. The Zephyrians are not like us. Their bodies are made of silicon instead of carbon. They are very strong and very hard to kill. But the worst part is that they do not seem to feel empathy. They cannot understand the suffering of others." Commander Kate Sullivan was Jake's second in command. She had fought in Earth's wars before coming to space. Her red hair was tied back and her green eyes were always watching for danger. "Captain, based on what we are hearing, the Zephyrians do not know we exist yet. Earth is far away from here. We have been quiet about expanding into space." Jake stared out at the stars through the ship's big window. Somewhere out there, billions of living beings were being turned into slaves. The Aurora was just one small exploration ship. It was not built for fighting wars. "Lisa, can you find any survivors from the conquered worlds?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls for several hours. She sent radio signals into space and listened for answers. Finally, she heard something. It was a weak signal from far away. "This is General Korvac," said a rough voice. "I am what is left of the Drakmor resistance. We are few now. We hide in empty space and on dead planets. The Zephyrians think they have won. Some of us are still alive. We know how they fight. We know their weak points. But we are not strong enough to hurt them anymore." Dr. Carter had been listening to other signals too. "Captain, I am hearing similar messages from 12 other species. Small groups of survivors. All of them hiding. All of them think the war is over." Kate studied the star maps on her screen. "The Zephyrian fleets are moving into position. They are pulling their warships back to guard the worlds they have conquered. This is what armies do after they win a big war." Jake thought for a long moment. Then he made up his mind. "Lisa, send a message back to Earth. Tell them everything we have learned. Ask them to send more ships to protect our colonies." He looked at each member of his crew. "Also, send a message to General Korvac. Tell him the Zephyrians made a mistake." "What mistake, Captain?" Alex asked. They think they destroyed all their enemies. But they have not met humans yet. The human exploration ship Aurora was small and alone in the vast darkness of space. But Earth was home to 8 billion humans, and humans had spent their whole history learning how to fight wars. They had fought with spears and swords, they had fought with guns and bombs, they had fought on land and sea and in the air. They knew every trick and strategy that warriors had ever invented. The Zephyrians had conquered many species, but those species had fought like the Zephyrians expected them to fight. They had big armies that met in big battles. They followed rules of honor and tradition. They fought the way their ancestors had taught them to fight. Humans were different. Humans would try anything that worked. They would fight dirty if they had to. They would hit enemies where they did not expect to be hit. They would work together in ways that seemed impossible. Most importantly, humans never gave up. Even when they were losing, they kept looking for new ways to win. The Aurora began its long journey back toward Earth. Behind them, the Zephyrian Empire celebrated their total victory. They thought the galaxy was theirs forever. They thought no one could challenge their power anymore. They were wrong. In a few months, human ships would arrive in the conquered territories. Human soldiers would meet with the surviving rebels. Human scientists would study Zephyrian technology and find its weaknesses. Human generals would make plans that the Empire had never seen before. The Zephyrians had declared victory too soon. They had celebrated before the war was really over. Soon they would learn that the most dangerous enemy is one you do not know exists. The age of Zephyrian dominance was about to end. The age of human intervention was about to begin. And the galaxy would never be the same again. 3 weeks passed before Captain Jake Murphy's message reached Earth. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying news that would change everything. Admiral John Hayes sat in his office on Luna Base, Earth's moon. He was 60 years old and had fought in many wars on Earth, but he had never heard anything like this message. The Admiral played Jake's transmission again. The captain's voice was calm but urgent. Admiral, we have discovered a galactic empire that has enslaved hundreds of worlds. They call themselves Zephyrians. They have killed billions of people from many different species. They think they have won completely, but they do not know about humans yet. Admiral Hayes called his assistant, Colonel Mary Price. She was a smart woman who knew everything about Earth's military forces. Mary, how many ships do we have that can travel to other star systems? Mary checked her computer files. We have 40 ships that can travel between stars, sir, but only 12 of them are built for fighting. The others are for exploration and trade. None of them were made for long wars in deep space. The Admiral stood up and walked to the big window in his office. Below him, Earth looked peaceful and blue. Mary, call President Williams right now. Tell her we need an emergency meeting of all world leaders. A few hours later, the most important people on Earth gathered in the Global Defense Council chambers. President Diana Williams had been a peacemaker before becoming president. She had helped end the last big wars on Earth. Now she faced a choice that no human leader had ever faced before. We have a moral duty to help, President Williams said to the council members. We cannot watch while aliens commit genocide, but we also have a duty to protect 8 billion humans on Earth and our colonies. General Robert Clark was the head of Earth's space military. He explained the situation to everyone. Madam President, Captain Murphy says the Zephyrian Empire controls more than 300 star systems. Each of their ships has more weapons than our ships. They also have many more ships than we do. What advantages do we have? The President asked. Dr. Susan Reed studied alien biology for a living. She had spent many days learning about the Zephyrians from Jake's data. The Zephyrians have bodies made of silicon instead of carbon like us. This makes them very hard to kill, but it also makes them slow to change their tactics. They have always won by having bigger armies and stronger weapons. They have never fought enemies who use surprise attacks and clever tricks. Captain Nina Foster commanded Earth's Special Forces soldiers. She leaned forward in her chair. Madam President, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have learned every way to fight that exists. These Zephyrians have only fought against aliens who fought in old-fashioned ways. They line up their armies and attack directly. They do not know about guerrilla warfare or psychology warfare or any of the clever tactics humans use. Admiral Hayes presented his plan to the council. I think we should send every ship we have, but we should not attack the Zephyrians directly. We should find the rebel groups that are still alive. We should give them human advisors and human weapons. We should teach them how to fight like humans fight. Then we hit the Zephyrians where they do not expect it. President Williams thought for a long time. The room was quiet. Finally, she spoke. I authorize Operation Liberation. Send our ships, send our soldiers, send our weapons, but most importantly, send our knowledge. Teach these aliens how humans fight wars. Within days, human ships were leaving Earth's solar system. They were packed with Special Forces soldiers, advanced weapons, and computers full of human military tactics. The ships were fast but small. They would have to be very clever to survive what was coming. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Murphy had been busy talking to rebel groups across the galaxy. The Aurora had become like a mobile headquarters. Jake was now in contact with survivors from 17 different alien species. Most of them had given up hope. They thought the war was over. This is Commander Jake Murphy of the Human Exploration Fleet. He broadcast on secret radio channels. We are here to help you take back your worlds. At first, the aliens did not believe him. General Korvac of the Drakmor was the first alien leader to meet with humans in person. Korvac was 7 feet tall and looked like a giant lizard with scales. His body was covered in scars from many battles. He studied Jake with old, tired eyes. We do not know your species, Korvac said in a deep, rough voice. You are small and soft. Your skin has no scales or armor. What can you possibly do against the Zephyrian Empire that we could not do? We are great warriors. We have fought for centuries, but we lost. Jake smiled, but his smile was not friendly. It was the smile of a predator. General, we are going to teach you something the Zephyrians have never seen before. We are going to show you what happens when prey stops running and starts hunting. Korvac did not understand. The Drakmor had always fought with honor. They met their enemies in open battle. They used big armies and strong weapons. This was the way of warriors. You speak in riddles, human, Korvac said. How can prey hunt predators? Jake's smile grew wider. General, on Earth we have a saying, the best defense is a good offense. But we have learned something even better. The best offense is an unexpected offense. The Zephyrians think they know how wars are fought. They are wrong. We are going to teach them about human warfare, and human warfare is different from anything they have ever seen. Dr. Alex Carter had been studying the Zephyrian military for weeks. He spoke up from his station. General Korvac, the Zephyrians have one big weakness. They cannot think outside their patterns. They do the same things over and over. They expect their enemies to do the same things over and over. But humans never do the same thing twice if we can help it. Commander Kate Sullivan added her own thoughts. General, your people fought bravely. But you fought the way the Zephyrians expected you to fight. You had big battles with big armies. You tried to match their strength with your strength. That is why you lost. Then how would you fight them? Korvac asked. Jake looked at the alien general with serious eyes. We would not fight their strength, General. We would fight their weaknesses. We would attack where they are not looking. We would hit them when they are not ready. We would make them afraid. And most importantly, we would never let them predict what we will do next. The conversation went on for hours. Slowly, General Korvac began to understand. The humans were not talking about cowardice. They were talking about intelligence. They were talking about using the enemy's own strength against them. By the end of the meeting, Korvac had agreed to let human advisors work with his remaining warriors. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. It was the beginning of human-style warfare on an alien battlefield. The Zephyrians had declared victory too soon. Soon they would learn why that was a mistake. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Wilson led the first human Special Forces team to land on the asteroid where General Korvac's army was hiding. Sam brought 12 human soldiers with him. They were small compared to the 7-foot-tall Drakmor warriors, but they carried themselves like dangerous predators. The meeting between humans and aliens was tense. The Drakmor warriors looked at the humans with confusion. These soft-skinned creatures claimed they could teach warriors how to fight. It seemed impossible. "You want us to attack supply trucks?" General Korvac's advisor, a female Drakmor named Skeltar, looked at the human battle plans with disgust. "This is not honorable fighting. We are warriors, not criminals who hide in shadows." Staff Sergeant Emma Davis looked up from the bombs she was building. She was a small woman with quick hands and a dangerous smile. "Honor does not win wars, General. Results do. The Zephyrians beat you in honorable combat, did they not?" The words made the Drakmor warriors angry. Their scales turned dark red with rage. But General Korvac held up his clawed hand to stop them from attacking. "Continue, human," he said. Colonel Wilson spread out a holographic map on the table. It showed Zephyrian positions across 3 star systems. The Zephyrians control your worlds through 3 main things: supply lines, communication networks, and command centers. They have put everything in one place because it worked against enemies who fought like them. Dr. Alex Carter had moved from the Aurora to help with intelligence work. He pointed to different parts of the map. "We have studied how the Zephyrians make decisions. Their commanders are slow to change plans. They follow rigid rules. They cannot handle fast, unpredictable attacks happening in many places at once." Over the next few weeks, human advisors spread out to different rebel groups across the galaxy. Each human team brought different skills: advanced technology, fighting knowledge, and most importantly, a completely new way of thinking about war. Captain Linda Parker worked with the surviving ethereals, the aliens who could move things with their minds. She taught them to use their powers in new ways. "Do not try to crush their minds," she explained to the ethereal leader Zethona. "Just confuse them. Make them see things that are not there. Make them doubt their own thoughts. Make them afraid of shadows." The first coordinated attack came without warning. 17 different rebel groups, guided by human tactics, hit Zephyrian positions at the same time across 9 star systems. Supply convoys disappeared into space. Communication towers went silent. Command centers found their computers filled with false information. High Commander Vexthala received the reports in his crystal palace. His body flickered with angry red light. "How can primitive rebels hiding in rocks coordinate such precise attacks?" he demanded from his officers. The Zephyrian response was exactly what the humans had predicted. They sent massive fleets to hunt down the rebel bases they knew about, but the human-advised rebels had already left those places. They were hiding in new locations that the Zephyrians did not know existed. Meanwhile, Major Tony Rodriguez was doing the most dangerous part of the human plan. His team had secretly landed on Zephyrian-controlled worlds. They were organizing revolts among the enslaved alien populations. They were not trying to free everyone at once, which would be impossible. Instead, they were creating constant security problems that forced the Zephyrians to use more and more soldiers as guards. Every Zephyrian soldier watching slaves is one less soldier available for their attack fleets, Rodriguez explained to rebel leaders through secret communications. The psychological effect on the Zephyrians was becoming clear. For 300 years, they had known only victory. Defeat was something they could not understand. When their supply convoys started vanishing, when their communications became unreliable, when their occupied worlds erupted in random violence, they began to make mistakes. Captain Jake Murphy watched the Zephyrian fleet movements from his new mobile command base. He was now coordinating resistance efforts across 40 star systems. "They are overreacting," he told Admiral Hayes during their weekly communication. "They are pulling ships from their expansion fleets to protect occupied territories. For the first time in 3 centuries, they have stopped growing their empire." But the Zephyrians were learning too. High Commander Vexithala was not stupid. He had noticed that all the recent defeats had something in common. Some unknown force was making the various rebel groups more effective than they had ever been before. Vexithala called his intelligence officers to his throne room. The crystal walls pulsed with angry light. "Find me these coordinators," he commanded. Find me the source of this new resistance and destroy it completely. The trap was set in motion. Zephyrian spies began tracking communication patterns between rebel groups. They used advanced technology to trace signals across space. Slowly, they began to identify the locations where the coordination was coming from. On the human side, the rebels were becoming more confident. General Korvax Drakmor, warriors had learned to use human-style ambush tactics. They no longer met Zephyrian forces in open battle. Instead, they struck fast and disappeared before the enemy could respond. "Your human ways are strange," Korvac told Colonel Wilson after a successful raid. "But they work. We destroyed a Zephyrian supply depot today and lost only 2 warriors. In the old days, such an attack would have cost us hundreds of lives." Skeltar, who had once called human tactics dishonorable, now commanded her own strike team. "I understand now," she said. "Honor that leads to death serves no purpose. Better to fight without honor and live to fight again." The Ethereals had become masters of psychological warfare under human guidance. They used their mental powers to drive Zephyrian commanders insane with paranoia. Zethona reported to Captain Parker, "The enemy commanders no longer trust their own thoughts. They see threats everywhere. Some have even attacked their own forces by mistake." But success brought new dangers. The more effective the resistance became, the more attention it drew from the Zephyrian Empire. Intelligence reports began reaching Jake Murphy that worried him greatly. "Admiral," Jake said during his next communication with Earth, "our sources inside Zephyrian territory report massive fleet movements. They are not just pulling back defensive forces anymore. They are gathering their largest fleet in centuries. I think they have figured out that someone is coordinating the resistance." "Admiral," Hayes' face was grim on the communication screen. "How large a fleet, Jake?" 1,200 ships, sir, including their newest and most powerful warships. They think they are going to end this rebellion with one decisive attack. Jake looked around his command center. Representatives from 19 different alien species worked alongside human advisors. They had built something unprecedented, a multi-species military alliance that used human tactics and alien capabilities. "Admiral, they are going to try to destroy our coordination centers. When they come, they will come with everything they have." Hayes nodded slowly. "Jake, our main fleet will reach you in 18 hours. But even with every ship Earth can send, we will be outnumbered 5-1. Jake smiled the same predator smile he had shown General Korvac weeks before. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are expecting to fight the same hidden resistance they have been dealing with for months. They are not prepared for what we are actually going to give them." The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The biggest Zephyrian fleet in 300 years moved through space like a metal storm. 1,200 warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. High Commander Vexithala stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars ahead. He was certain that this battle would end the rebellion forever. "We have found their main command center," Vexithala told his officers. "Today we will destroy the source of this resistance. Today we will restore order to the galaxy." But the Zephyrians had made a mistake. They thought they were hunting a hidden base. They did not know they were flying into a trap designed by human minds. Captain Jake Murphy received the final intelligence report from his spy network. "They are coming, Admiral," he told Admiral Hayes through the communication link. 1,200 ships just like we expected. They think they are going to surprise us." Admiral Hayes looked tired. The journey from Earth had taken months, and his fleet was much smaller than the Zephyrian armada. "Jake, our ships will be there in 2 hours. But we only have 60 vessels. Even with all our alien allies, we are outnumbered 10-1. Jake stood in the command center of Liberation Station, the asteroid base that had become the heart of the multi-species resistance. Around him, beings from 19 different worlds worked together, planning the most important battle in galactic history. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are expecting to fight the same hidden rebels they have been chasing for months. They think we will run and hide like we always do. They are not ready for what we are actually going to give them." Colonel Kate Sullivan, now commanding all human military advisors in the sector, joined the conversation. The enemy is thinking like they always think. Big fleet, big weapons, big attack. They expect us to scatter and hide. Instead, we are going to meet them in open space and show them something they have never seen before. The battle plan was insane by any normal military standard. Instead of hiding, the combined human-alien fleet was going to meet the Zephyrian armada head-on. But they were not going to fight like any enemy the Empire had ever faced. As the Zephyrian fleet approached the coordinates of the supposed rebel base, they found something unexpected waiting for them. 400 ships from dozens of different species, arranged in a formation that made no sense according to traditional space combat rules. High Commander Vexithala studied the enemy formation from his command throne. The crystal walls of his bridge pulsed with satisfied light. "They offer themselves for destruction," he declared. "All ships, open fire. End this rebellion today." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with weapons that could destroy planets. Energy beams and missile barrages filled space with deadly light. The alien commanders expected to see the enemy fleet torn apart under the assault. Instead, something impossible happened. The rebel ships began moving in patterns that seemed completely random. Instead of staying in formation like proper warships, they scattered in all directions, then came back together in new groups, then scattered again. The Zephyrian targeting computers, designed for normal fleet battles, could not keep track of targets that moved so unpredictably. "What is this chaos?" Vexthala demanded. He was seeing something no Zephyrian had ever witnessed. Human-trained pilots using tactics learned from Earth's air combat, adapted for three-dimensional space warfare. The rebel ships were not trying to match Zephyrian firepower. They were using speed, surprise, and coordination to avoid damage while getting into position for counterstrikes. Commander Pete Jackson led the human fighter squadrons in the attack. His voice crackled over the quantum-encrypted communications. "All wings execute pattern Delta 7. Hit their flanks and withdraw before they can target you." The Zephyrian fleet found itself under attack from directions they had not anticipated. Small groups of ships would appear, strike at weak points, and vanish before the heavy weapons could respond. It was like being attacked by a swarm of angry insects, each following its own path, but somehow working together with deadly precision. Then Admiral Hayes arrived with Earth's main fleet. The human ships were smaller and lighter than the Zephyrian dreadnoughts, but they moved with a precision that the Empire had never encountered. They flowed through space like schools of fish, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be. "This is Admiral John Hayes of the Human Defense Fleet," came the transmission on all frequencies. "High Commander Vexithala, you are guilty of genocide against 17 sentient species. Surrender now, or learn why declaring victory against humanity was premature." Vexithala's response was immediate and angry. "Unknown species, you will be destroyed like all who oppose the Empire." The Zephyrian fleet turned to engage the human ships, confident that their superior firepower would end this new threat quickly. They had defeated every opponent they had faced through overwhelming strength, applied with methodical precision. They had never faced opponents who had spent their entire history fighting each other. The human fleet split into multiple formations, each moving independently but coordinated through networks that allowed instant communication. They used the Zephyrian fleet's size against them, forcing the huge enemy ships to maneuver carefully to avoid hitting each other, while the smaller human vessels darted between them like deadly gnats. Captain Lisa Grant commanded the destroyer, defiance through a gap in the Zephyrian formation that should have been suicide. Instead of being trapped, her ship used the gravitational fields of the enemy dreadnoughts to accelerate while avoiding their weapons. "Target their command ship," Admiral Hayes ordered. "Show them what happens when humans stop playing defense." The combined human and alien fleet converged on Vexithala's flagship. The Zephyrian commander watched in disbelief as his supposedly invincible armada was systematically outmaneuvered by opponents who fought with coordination and adaptability his species had never developed. The battle lasted 8 hours. The Zephyrians had more ships and bigger weapons, but they could not adapt to human tactics fast enough. Their rigid command structure could not handle the rapid changes in the battle. When their communications were jammed by ethereal psychic attacks. Their coordination collapsed completely. When the fighting ended, the Zephyrian Empire's greatest fleet was broken. Half their ships were destroyed or disabled. High Commander Vexithala's flagship was boarded by human marines led by Colonel Sam Wilson. As Wilson accepted Vexithala's surrender, the alien commander asked a question that would haunt the Empire forever. "What manner of species are you, that you fight with such chaos?" Wilson smiled the predator smile that humans had perfected over millennia of warfare. "We are humans, Commander, and we fight with chaos because it works better than order when your enemies expect order." The news of the Zephyrian defeat spread throughout the galaxy within days. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Empire had been beaten in open battle. More importantly, enslaved species everywhere began to realize that their oppressors were not invincible. Captain Jake Murphy, now promoted to Commodore, stood before the reformed Galactic Council. This time, it was not a gathering of conquered species bowing to Zephyrian power, but a coalition of free worlds planning their liberation. "The Zephyrian Empire declared victory too soon," Murphy announced to the assembled representatives. "They thought they had eliminated all opposition. They were wrong. Today begins the liberation of every world they conquered. Today begins an age where no single species can dominate all others. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. The age of human-led galactic cooperation had begun, and across the galaxy, on worlds that had known only slavery for generations, a single word spread like wildfire. The humans had arrived and nothing would ever be the same."